Hello and welcome to the BurnCast. I'm Brady Byrne.
And I'm Kim Cass.
Today we're looking at a book called Code X Operation Judas Goat by author R.D. Foster. As always, any criticisms directed towards the authors of works that we discuss are exaggerated for entertainment purposes and are not meant to be taken personally. Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoyed the show. Let's talk about Code X Operation Judas Goat.
Let's talk about it. Now, I just want to go and start off by saying I love a simple story.
Me too.
I love it. You know, I pick up a book, it tells me what it's going to be, and it ends up being what it says it was going to be. And that is so much better than picking up something that is trying to be something and fails to be it.
Yeah.
Even if it was trying to be something 10 times better than what this book is trying to be, which is a very, very simple sort of 1960s, 1970s, Charlie's Angels, spy, action, crime, thriller with very little conflict and drama.
Almost no conflict, actually, when it comes down to it, in terms of character drama.
Yeah, none at all. Everything goes very smoothly in this operation, and, but really, at the end of the day, we have to start off by saying what really drew us to this book, and that is the title.
Yeah.
And that title is brilliant.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, titles do a lot of work for you. They do a lot of work for you when you're making a book, because if you're looking at it from a sales perspective, you don't have to get them to read all of your book. You just need them to buy it.
That's very true. And the title is what hooked us in. You know, you got Code X. It doesn't mean anything, but it sounds cool. And Operation makes you think it's going to be some sort of spy thing. And a Judas Goat, just nonsensical.
Yeah.
In any sort of context way. But, you know, once you get into the story, it does have some context. But, man, the title is gripping.
Yeah. It did have a satisfying, sort of title reveal, you know, what does it mean? What does Operation Judas Goat actually mean?
Yeah.
And, you know, it was satisfying. So, all props. There were a lot of things that this story set up that it ended up fulfilling. I'm so used to getting, to picking up books and just being like, oh, this title is just a random name, or, you know, or these characters are just pulling out guns that are never going to be used. No. When they do training with weapons in this story, they actually end up using those weapons, you know? So that part of the story was very satisfying to read. Even if, dare I say, the story was not incredibly thrilling.
Well, I mean, it just doesn't shoot very high. Like you said, there's very little conflict in this story, and that works in its favor because it's a very tight narrative, and it just kind of happens, and you're at the end of it and you're like, oh, that was a nice little story, but you're also not really wowed by anything in particular. But, you know, that brings us to a broader discussion of, like, is that really necessary in storytelling?
Yeah.
Did the book set out to accomplish what it wanted to? And I think it did here.
Yeah, I did. And to be honest, do I feel cheated after buying and reading this book? No. I don't. I don't at all. It was a cheap Kindle book by someone I had no idea know, was a good author, and they did what I expected them to do. You
know, for your average person, this means nothing. You pick up a book by an unknown author, you read it, it's fine. For us, it's stunning.
Yeah. I mean, it really is like, it instantly places you into the god tier of BurnCast
It really
books.
does.
If you yeah. I mean, this story has so many things that BurnCast books don't do. It has an ending. It has it has a functioning, flowing story. It has almost a 3-act structure. I would say it's in the wheel. It doesn't really fit into it, but it's got 2 plot lines that flow together in I dare say that it's not all the way there.
No.
But it's almost there.
But after something like Dream State, we're checking the mark off for just having continuity at all.
Yeah. And I always find it funny because I'm reading something, you know, and I'm skipping past all the huge problems that I would normally think of with normal books, needless over-explanation about things or over-description and poor dialogue and things like that.
Yeah.
And my eyebrows are going up and I'm going, hey, like the story is actually functioning and that chapter was actually useful. It told me something.
Yeah, chapters function as chapters do. Information is used correctly. You know, every paragraph does the work it should be doing. Like, characters don't just endlessly exposit their backstory to each other. No, when it comes up, it is relevant to what's happening, and the pacing is pretty well done. So, you know, it's just a satisfying book to read, and we're not really used to that on this show.
Yeah, honestly it is. And of course, the best thing about the book is the character behind the book, R.D. Foster.
Yes.
Is the best part about the story.
He absolutely is. You know, we thought we found a silly named book under a bargain bin price, and what we got is riches beyond our imagination in the author's life story and his amazing website.
Yeah, truly, it's like a blast from the past, like a 2001, 2002 era HTML
Yes.
site with skeleton gifs walking around, you know. And I mean, this guy is brilliant. He has his own music, he has his own website, he has his own, like, he's an all-star man. He fires on all cylinders.
We've really got a multi-talented auteur here. You know, he's a former U.S. Marine Corps veteran.
Yeah.
On his website, you can find pictures of him in Vietnam and pictures of his like road tours on his music career. And you can go to his YouTube channel and listen to his music, and it's actually pretty good.
Yeah, it's not bad. I will say that his music, like, you can listen to his whole song and not be like, oh God, turn it off.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and that for me, I haven't come across anyone else in our particular sphere of creators.
You almost called them writers, but I don't think we're we're ready to attribute them with that title just yet.
I stumbled on that word because I knew it wasn't right. I couldn't say it. I couldn't say it. Yeah. No. These creators that has. Produced other works that are even better than their writing, which, yes, R.D. Foster, the Red Dog Rangers, brilliant little band there. Go search them up. They deserve more attention.
Yeah, we'll put some links to that in the description. And we even got permission from Mr. Foster to play a bit of that for you now. So the story takes place in 1968, and it centers around Code X, which is some sort of secretive organization, something like the CIA.
Yes, this is the second volume in the series, so they've already completed their first mission. 2 agents, Turquoise and Azalita, and these 2 girls are then going to be trained to be better operatives.
Yeah, and in that segment, there's a training montage.
The training montage basically contained them doing like 1 week gun training, 1 week hand-to-hand combat, piloting aircraft, 1 week jumping out of planes, and then they're masters. And it's like, yeah, like they're just, and at the end of it, it says, now they're the teachers because they're so good at it, you know? And it's like, what? Who needs to fly a plane in a week? They go down to El Paso, Texas, and it's just like the aircraft instructor was so impressed with the lady's performance that all of a sudden he was saying that they were teaching him, you know? And it's like, what? What?
It's also funny because they don't use any of that training in the actual operation. It's not relevant at all.
No, none. No. They don't fly any planes. No planes are involved.
No.
None. They don't jump out of any plane. All that build-up, all that montage, come on.
Yeah.
Now, this also comes across in a hilariously strange manner where General Jameson is discussing this with Mr. Frank White, who's another one of these higher-ups. And it reads, "Damn, Frank, those 2 young agents we've got performed absolutely flawless, they did. Just think how good they'll be after being properly trained." "Yes, sir," the former homicide detective agreed. Who would have thunk it? 1 titty dancer and 1 orphaned little Indian girl, neither formally trained, could take down a dirty United States senator and the cream of the KGB crop? Ha! Those bastards never knew what hit them. And it's just like your eyes are lit up and you're like, okay, this is
yeah.
All right.
I mean, on one side of this, I think like this is a product of its time, you know. It's written for the era by a man of the era, and he's using terminology that maybe, you know, insensitive people of that era would use. And at the same time, some of the subtext is rather sexist throughout the book. Yeah. So you do wonder, is this like for realism, or is it just what he actually thinks is funny?
Yeah. And this is only, what, like 2%, like a couple of pages in.
Yeah, this is like on the second page.
Yeah. And that's when I started to play the game that I like to call, Is This Sexist?
Yeah.
It's a fun little game to play because you're never quite sure sometimes with this book. It's right on the line, and you're constantly weighing it up. Are these female agents just eye candy? You know, is it like a Pirates of Tropica where they only serve to take their breasts out? Or are they used for anything else? Are they anything other than honeypots? And, well, we can discuss that as the book goes along, but this is where I began to play the game.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It is kind of online because while it's true that both of the revolving plots involved in Operation Judas Go are centered around these 2 agents doing different things, Azulita and Turquoise, both being used as honeypots to infiltrate and seduce and kind of screw over people that they're trying to take down. At the same time, it's on that line because those 2 characters actually have a decent amount of characterization here. They've got backstories and they aren't bimbos. They're not like Apocalypse Deception, brainless pairs of tits.
Yeah.
They are like genuine, thinking, intelligent, capable individuals.
It's okay. But that book turned women into objects. Yeah. That's the ultimate form of like, you know, sexism, where like they're not even human anymore. But this is, I kind of found it sexist in the way because you can use a woman as a honeypot and do these things without it really being sexist. But the problem I had with it really is that the women don't really, there's always a guy behind them, you know? Yeah. There's always a guy behind them doing the deals, doing the organization, doing all the planning. You know, you go here, you do this, I'll organize your little life, and you just stand there and, you know, be my little operative unit.
And we have to ask, is that a product of, like, that's how people in the 60s determined women's roles? You know, is it the case that in, like, a gun deal, you know, they would say, like, all right, you know, miss, you go over there and get us some drinks while the men talk business, you know?
It is. It is.
And it's like, is this a commentary on that, or is this a part of the story in some other way?
Yeah.
And it's just really hard to tell.
Well, it is. It's really hard to tell. On the one hand, you've got the guys that they look up to, the general and Mr. White and things like that. Constantly talking about how sexy they are, and they're being very cheeky, and you know, it's all like ooh,
flirty,
like,
yeah.
And they're like confident girls.
And they're in on it too.
Yeah, they're in on it. It kind of plays it off like it's just joke, bantery kind of thing. But on the other hand, it's like they're undercover operatives.
Yeah.
Throughout this entire book. And they just don't get to use their intuition very much. I mean, on the one hand, Azulita, or is that her name? I just gotta get this wrong a million times. Azulita, she does do a bit of like, you know, intuition stuff, but it still is kind of like dictated for her that she should do that in the first place. Like, go and teach these people how to use guns.
Yeah. It's like, I think the thing here is that there's no defining statement in this that you could say, okay, this is commentary on, late 60s era sexism. There's no defining moment where, the women have been treated a certain way and they rebuke that treatment by doing something else. Or, that they stand up for themselves in some certain way that is a commentary on disproving predefined gender roles or anything like that. I mean, there's just nothing really there. Like we said, the story is very
basic. I mean, it's so basic. And that's why, this game, I never really found my footing, because it's not trying to make any commentary on either thing. It's not trying to say anything more than just telling a very simple plot.
Yeah.
And that's why it comes across, it has this very B-movie quality.
Yes. Intentionally, though.
Yeah, intentionally.
At points.
Intentionally and at points, and sometimes unintentionally, I think, as well. So, and if you watch a B-movie or something like that, then do you really find it that sexist? You just find it stupid, if anything, You're not really offended because a B-movie is that, insulting or something like that, because you're already laughing at it.
Yeah.
And that's why I kind of was reading this and it wasn't so bad, because if you're laughing at the work, then it's very hard to be offended by it at the same time.
Yeah.
That is the kind of result that I ended up with when I was wondering, is it going to be terribly sexist, or is it going to be just, making a commentary? It's definitely not making a commentary. It's also not really sexist either.
Yeah, and, we're not the arbiters on what is or isn't offensive to women, because we aren't women. And so, it's not really our place to tell, but there's nothing overtly problematic about the text here, but it's also not totally in the clear either, I think is the point we're trying to make.
Yeah. While you're reading it, you're going well, this probably wouldn't fly, in a normal context. But, just whatever.
Yeah, and so, we get off on our operation. The two girls are deployed to take down a emerging revolutionary group called the SSC, or Students for Socialistic Change. And the two girls are getting introduced to what they're going to be doing. And they're asking, what the hell does this operation mean? Judas goat. And Frank tells them, a Judas goat is a goat that has been trained to lead a flock to the slaughterhouse. It actually says in the text, the slaughterhouse, but, move past it. And so they basically get a mission to infiltrate and take down a group of radical leftist college kids.
Yeah.
Which is great.
And now these college kids are really they just seem to be college kids. I mean, there's one rich college kid, Louis.
Yeah, he's the leader of the SSC, and his parents work in politics or something like this, and he's very wealthy, but he disagrees with their lifestyle because they're the elite, and he wants to become a communist revolutionary. And so they've got their college dorm house, and it's very overt with communist iconography. It's there's pictures of Karl Marx, Che Guevara, and Ho Chi Minh on the walls at the entrance. We are communists here.
Yeah. And of course, it says that they were getting looped on marijuana. I love that terminology. That's straight out of the 60s. Those bloody communists getting looped on marijuana. What are they doing?
But basically, you have the whole plot centering around this revolutionary startup organization of a bunch of college kids. They have previously been involved in some sort of gun heist. They bought weapons from some bikers who robbed a National Guard stockpile. And so the Code X operation is all about trying to take down these kids before they do something crazy with the guns.
Yeah.
And so they set up our two ladies, Azalita and Turquoise, in a way that helps them infiltrate this operation.
So they set them up and they purchase a local establishment, and they place one as the manager and one as a waitress. And it's kind of funny because I wanted to actually say this, that the names get very confusing because they have original names, their real names, then they have code names, and then they have names that they use within their operations. So I'm thinking, I keep wanting to say Lulu, but I know that Lulu is only her name when she's hanging out with the biker gangs. But I forgot her name in the beginning because there's just too many, like 3 names for one person.
Not just that, but one of them gets like an extra layer to this. She's got her real name, and then she's got Azulita. And then in the operation, her code name is Joanna, but that's actually a cover for another backstory that they're supposed to figure out because they make up like that she was a revolutionary so that, you know, she can make sweet with the leader of the gang, and that gets her hooked into their whole operation. And, you know, all that stuff flows pretty well. Like the whole setup of the operation.
It does. Honestly, it does flow well, but like I just wanted to say, I keep wanting to say Lulu, but in that part of the story, her name isn't Lulu. Yeah. But anyway, Lulu is set up as the waitress and doesn't really do anything in the beginning.
No, she doesn't.
She's just sort of there, and she actually complains about not being utilized in the mission until through like half of the book.
Well, you've also forgot she also gets an extra nickname because...
Oh yeah, she becomes Dirty Bob. She's Bobby. That's her name. I remember now. Her name's Bobby, and then she throws darts at a couple jocks, and then she gets the nickname Dirty Bob. And so everyone calls her Dirty Bob. And Louis is saying, "Oh yeah, I love old Dirty Bob." It's just like how and what. Yeah, what?
And it just uses them interchangeably. It'll call her Dirty Bob in one scene, Turquoise in another one, and Lulu in another one, and it's just a bit confusing.
Yeah, it just goes back and forth, yeah. But the Dirty Bob thing was hilarious. I love that.
Yeah, but yeah, and the other one, Azulita, she's posing as a college student and has the backstory that her college student identity is a fake cover for like a previous revolutionary who, you know, worked for a Marxist military group.
Yeah, in Nicaragua.
Yeah, and their intention is for this cover to get blown so that Louis, the leader of the SSC, takes her in and...
thinks that she has, like, you know, military experience and hires her to be part of his revolution.
Yeah, I mean, she is quite qualified for that, though. I mean, they bring her in, and they're just a bunch of college kids. So they don't know shit about, like, how to handle the weapons that they have. So she comes in, and she's like, all right, you bunch of greenhorns, like, I'm going to show you how to fire a fucking pistol.
Yeah, and that was my main problem with the plot. And the plot is kind of agreeable. You're along with most of it without any problems.
Yeah.
The issue that I had was that these people don't know anything about what they're doing. They have no training. They're just angry kids, basically. And then their idea is like, oh, to stop these radical left college kids from committing crimes, what we're going to do is send in an undercover agent and teach them how to use all manner of weapons and subterfuge and subversive activities and guerrilla tactics, and we'll train them to be hardcore fucking militant communists, and then we'll arrest them. Like, and then we'll arrest the bastards because they're already aware that they're selling dope.
Yeah,
but it's like for some reason that's not good enough, and they want to train them to be militants first. And it's like, why not just do like a drug thing? Why not just get them on the drugs? But hey, it's Charlie's Angels.
Yeah,
you know, you don't ask questions. You just want to see the sexy girl walk around and, you know, seduce them and do the whole honeypot thing and pull out the pistol and, you know, and that's fun. It's fun.
It's true that the plot is probably a little more complicated than it needs to be, and it's not that complicated to begin with, but, you know, they could have just picked them up when they did another gun deal, you know, trace the serial numbers back to the National Guard, and that would have been it. But you're right, they infiltrate, they teach them how to use the guns so that they can go on a bank heist and then get them there, and then they do the drug deal and that sort of thing. And it's just like a bit of a roundabout way to do it.
It's almost like the guy behind it was not thinking clinically and more thinking about how would this work well in a movie, you know?
And to be honest, it works well for that.
Yeah, no, it does, yeah.
It keeps you wondering, like, how are they going to do the next thing? But I think the main problem here is, again, that there's no problem with this plan. Like, basically all the way up until the end, none of this operation goes wrong. Like, the kids themselves are not very adept at anything.
No.
And the biker gang, who Turquoise infiltrates later on, are a bunch of idiots.
Yeah.
And they're so easily tripped by the honeypot that there's just like no chance for like them to hit any snags.
No, yeah, it's really unbelievable how they just cruise through this. And it's also funny with how they present how, like, throughout the entire book, it's like, you know, Turquoise was prepared for this and she knew exactly how to handle this situation. And it's like, okay, well, then all the tension is removed. I'm just going to sit back and be like, yeah, next page, like, she's got it all under control. Yeah. There's no conflict, no excitement. Even if it's an action scene, you know, if it says she knows exactly what she's doing, then I believe it.
Yeah.
There's no danger element because I just feel like they are always going to come out on top. And they do, of course.
Yeah, they do. I would say that, you know, the one section where they do hit somewhat of a snag, one of the other members of Operation Judas Goat, Mr. Green, he hit some sort of snag in having his cover blown. He used to be a guard at a prison where one of the biker gang's goons used to be at, and they recognize him. So his cover gets blown. It throws it into a little bit of disarray, and Turquoise gets caught talking on the radio, but this isn't like played out in any sort of drastic, consequential manner.
No, it's resolved in a few pages.
Yeah, they still take down the guys. Turquoise manages to take out the biker, you know, when he tries to shoot at her. And
yeah.
I will say the good thing about this is the story actually has a fair bit of restraint when it comes to that. You're reading through this book and it's all about like guns and stuff, and you know, the author's a previous Marine, so he's real technical with lots of gun stuff. You're expecting like the big shootout at the end, and there really isn't one, which I thought was appropriate, to be honest.
Yeah.
There's only one shot fired in the whole thing, and it's quite punctual. It's not like deflating, and it's not overly dramatic.
Yeah, it basically is like the bad guy gets shot, and that's as much, you know, it's not like the bad guy gets shot in the head and his skull explodes out the back end. No. It hits the front of the car, and then Turquoise peppered him with a couple more rounds and shot his dick off, and then his thighs exploded outwards. Like it's not like that. It's not like a Hard Target sort of death scene. You know, it's very simple, and yeah, in a way, I found the best thing about this book was that it was like one of the first books that I've read that I really thought, man, this person actually reads books. Like, yeah, they're not a brilliant writer by any means, but they understand, like, you know, structure and how stories sort of work and what's actually interesting in a story.
And to a lesser extent, but still to some extent, character.
Yeah.
You know, the character who does fire the shot at the end, Turquoise, she's not, like, just a cold killing machine after this. There's actually a pretty decent scene where she's talking about how much she regrets having to do that. You know, they don't just take innocent life without any sort of thought about it. They do remark like, oh, you know, maybe in a different life, things could have gone differently for that guy. And, you know, wish it didn't have to end this way. So they're not treating death or violence as just this machine to generate tension in the story. They actually, you know, use it for character.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Yes. Now, they could have done with some other things to generate tension, because if you just remove violence and don't put anything else in there, then you've got nothing.
Yeah, that's true.
And there is no tension in this book. It's just, and it's quite funny because all the characters are so jive about it. All the characters in control, all the Code X characters are so jive about their operation, and they're just like, you know, they're all smoking cigars and being like, damn, oh damn, we got everything under control. Nothing's going wrong around here.
My favorite part of that is almost every scene that Azulita is in where she's like duping Louis and the SSC into, you know, doing a bank heist or like basically making them fall easily into Codex's plans. The guy like on the radio, Frank, who's running the operation, he's always like kicking back in an office somewhere listening in, and he's like, those fucking maroons.
Yeah, those fucking maroons. Yeah, and that's another thing that I wanted to get to, the language, because we need to talk about the language here.
Yes.
And on the one hand, the language on one side I found quite good.
Charming even.
Yeah, charming. And then on the other side, it seemed like guesswork. It was really like, he was trying to get in the mind of a communist revolutionary and, you know, a marijuana smoking, acid taking revolutionary.
Yeah.
And the words that he kept going back to were groovy and dig this, you know? And Louis the whole time is just like, yeah, well, you know, dig this. I got to place it around this place and dig this, you know?
Yeah.
And it was just so... like,
Dig this. I believe the power should be returned back to the people, not from those elites. That's not groovy.
yeah. Yeah, that's not groovy. But dig this. I think what is groovy is digging this, which is the communist revolution.
Yeah.
Dig it? You know, it's just, and you're like reading it and you're like, I get it. I get it.
Yeah. But it, you know, brought a decent amount of flavor to the text. It's better than, you know, just like boring expositive dialogue. So,
yeah. And so on the one hand, it's kind of a good timepiece. It doesn't hit you over the head with a lot of what it's doing, and it has such great references to, I think, dare I say, the weaponry, and because it's really like, you know, what was high tech at the time, you know, and they were like, we're outfitting you with the latest equipment and check out this pistol, and it's an ACP, and that was the highest gear in the 70s, you know, it really was. And it's nice to read those little sections because it adds so much flavor, I think, because you're like, to our eyes, it's not high tech.
yes.
But to their eyes, it is. And that's cool. But then on the other side, it's like hitting you over the head back and forth with this, like, he is a communist, revolutionary, acid, marijuana smoking, hippie, groovy guy. Dig it? You know, like, and it's just so silly. It's just so stupid.
You know, I thought at one point there would be some sort of twist in the narrative where, you know, Louis is giving this diatribe to Azalea about, like, you know, returning power to the people. And he lays out a pretty decent argument for socialism, you know, something more akin to like modern day socialism.
Yeah, that's,
and I thought the story, you know, maybe is treating this as like a radical idea because, you know, somewhere down the line, Azalea will agree with him and switch sides, or, you know, something would happen there. But no, the plot does not actually do that. It literally just... we're trying to dupe these college kids into doing a bank job so that we can arrest them and put them in jail for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. And in the beginning of the story, Louis is talking and lining off all of these good points as to why, like, you know, the system is corrupt and minorities are getting fucked over.
Yeah.
And, you know, the cops are bullshit and and we need to restore the power to the working class. And he's like lining up really good points. Yeah. And then Azulita is like, yeah, that's really clever, you know, and then in her head she's like, this boy's going down. It's like, you smoked your last reefer, communist.
Yeah. It's gonna be hard to get that mescaline in prison.
Yeah.
So, you know, I was a little disappointed it didn't do something more clever with that. It literally just happens exactly as the plan in the beginning set out to happen.
Yeah.
There are a few clever spots, you know, for Azalea as she's like infiltrating this sort of gang. One scene I particularly liked is when Louis is like leading her to some sort of like area out of town where they've got the weapon cache, and she's supposed to like call out a different kind of animal when they take a left or a right, you know.
Oh, yes.
She's got like a listening bug in her purse, back to Frank or something like this. And it says if she mentions a four-legged animal, that means a left turn. A big animal is paved road, and a small one, such as a magpie or a rabbit, is an unpaved road. And, you know, Louis blindfolds her because he doesn't quite know her just yet. And she still finds a way to call these things out, you know, in a clever way. She'll bring it into the dialogue, like, oh, don't you trust me? Like, oh, you know, make sure you don't hit that rabbit. And he's like, what, you can see through that thing? She's like, no, I'm just kidding. But man, you know, having a blindfold on really amplifies your hearing. Is that a blue jay I hear? And you can tell that she's like, you know, signaling to the people on the other end.
Yeah, but she's playing it off. And that's clever.
So yeah, you can see that, you know, these aren't just bimbos. They do have like, you know, operational intuition. They think ahead of things. They're not just guided around by the men behind the scenes, but at the same time, they kind of are.
Yeah, I mean,
in other ways.
Yeah, they kind of are. And They seduce the main biker guy, and they seduce the main communist guy, and then they lead them on the I'm the pretty girl, chase me sort of, do what I say trail. And then the
helicopters roll in.
And then the helicopters and the Ford trucks roll in. And everyone gets arrested and everyone gets shot. So, it's really like... when you're playing two plot lines, I think as well. This is another thing I want to bring up. You're playing two plot lines. You've got basically the same thing happening.
Yeah.
Secret agent girl seducing bad guy. Yeah?
Yeah.
It's happening at the same time as the story goes on.
Well, not really seducing, but more like leading on.
Leading on. Seducing, having sex with. I would say that's seduction. On one
side of them. Yeah,
on one side of it at least. Yeah, and then leading on in the other one. But as this thing goes along, you would expect maybe a little bit of like you play two different sides of how things could go, but if you do the same thing in both of those plot lines, it's like you're expecting something else. Because I just heard in the last chapter what happened with that girl and him. If you're just going to do the same thing with this girl and the other guy, I'm almost reading the same thing.
Yeah, with like different flavor text around it. One of them is like, the girl explaining guns, and the other one is a guy explaining motorcycles.
Yeah, but that's the problem. You're basically doing two exact same stories in parallel, and I'm just reading double to get the same results.
Yeah.
And that is problematic. That's a problematic thing. You need to do different things with your storytelling. You can't do the same thing. That's inefficient, I would say.
It's true.
But I also want to make another point. Because the other character, Mr. Green.
Yes.
A big burly man. The man that gets found out. He's a Codex operative, an assistant to the girls. And he plays a large part in the bikie gang side of the operation. And he teaches Bobby, Lulu, and whatever else she is called, about bicycles and the general nature of things. Yep. And there's a nice scene where it's just like, oh, you can't just learn how to ride the bike. You also need to learn how to fix them up if you're going to impress these people,
yes.
Yeah. Riding a bike is one thing, but knowing how they work and doing all that, and that's cool. And again, you have this little montage where it's like 1 week and she's a pro. Like 1 week, she knows how to ride him, she knows how to fix them, and that's all good. And I just like, have you ever ridden a motorcycle before? I mean, those things are, anyone masters that in a week, they should be fucking king of earth. Like, now, Mr. Green, this came out of left field.
No, it doesn't.
Is a virgin.
No, it doesn't come out of left field.
What? I mean... What? To me, for what purpose is it? Why is he a virgin? And why is Lulu teaching him sex? What does that have to do with anything? Why? I didn't want that. What was it?
Well, it's one of these things where in return for him teaching her about bikes, she teaches him basically sexual education because he has a backstory involving... I mean, it's pretty clearly laid out. I didn't think it came out of left field. I thought it was actually kind of nice.
Well, no. I didn't find it actually weird to begin with, because for all intents and purposes, I kind of thought that romance would play out.
No, it doesn't.
But then, no, it doesn't play out, does it? It's a short-term sex education, and then she goes off and honeypots the biker gang guy.
Yeah.
And, sleeps with him, and then, like, I just didn't get any completion to that arc. It's just like, did he learn how to be a good romancer? Is he, did it solve his issues? I don't know.
It did. That plot does end.
I mean, I didn't get that. I didn't get that from the story.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't necessary, but, at least it gave Mr. Green something, like, other than just being someone else in the story.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. Maybe, again, it's about being efficient with your story. I think if you're doing, like, a sexual education plotline, I mean, like, maybe use that on a character that's already being used, like, have that between Azulita and Louis or something like that. And you've got these two plot lines, You've got these two plot lines and you can do different things with them, and then you can be efficient with your storytelling and doing one where It's like the girl is seducing this biker guy. He's, macho and all this stuff. And then she's torn with having to kill him at the end, but also missing him because he was such a catch, and they have that sort of conclusion. And then on the other side, you have this thing where she teaches Louis how to be a lover, and maybe they form a connection over that, and then she said that he has to go to prison. So you could have an opposite dynamic, but it's front-loaded onto this one girl who just teaches this one guy how to bang, who's also just a partner of hers in an operation.
Yeah.
And then she bangs someone else immediately. And it kind of seemed a little bit callous.
There's no real arcs in this.
Yeah, no, there isn't. It's very flat plane, isn't it? No, very flat plane.
But that's basically all there is to it. Again, there's not too much wrong with it, but it's not really shooting above the mark either. So that was Code X, Operation Judas Goat. So we're going to be doing something a little different from now on. And instead of talking about the next book that we're going to read here, we've actually been going live on Twitch recently and doing our book hunts there. So you can actually tune in and watch us pick it live.
And I think there's some fun to be had just in looking at all the things we aren't going to read as well. And usually that stuff is just lost to the annals of time.
Yeah.
But now you get to see it in all its glory, just how deep the Amazon slush pile is.
Yeah, you can see us suffer in real time and join in on the fun. So you can find our Twitch channel in our links in the description, and we will see you live there. And one more time, Ronnie, play us out.
Charging up that hill late at night, they were dying on my left and on my right. In that living hell I heard my name, standing there in the rain, the devil locked in my sight. Shot at me with blood from his eyes. I fired right back, I knew he wouldn't die. He came for me and I said not yet. Stood my ground and with a fixed bayonet I met the devil in hand to hand that night. I met the devil in hand to hand that night. I hardly felt the pain. We battled in the rain like mad dogs in the mud. We tasted blood, fought like the devil when I fought the devil that night.
Thank you everyone for listening and supporting the show. We really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to subscribe and join in the conversation with us on one of our platforms. You can find us on Discord, Twitter, and Reddit.
and we also stream live on Twitch. You can support the show through Patreon or just by sharing the show with your friends. Thanks!